Hey guys, so today I am going to compare the Lotus Elise and the Exige to see actually how different they are, considering they're made on the same production line in the factory. So the main difference between the two is the Elise has a 1.8 supercharged engine compared to the V6 in the Exige. Now that's quite a big power difference. Another difference between the two is the Exige does have an inch longer chassis with a bigger body kit just to make it look that bit more mean and aggressive compared to the smiley Elise. But let's find out how different they truly are to drive. Now look wise, they both have the hard top, but I think I do prefer all the aero on the Elise. The Cup Aero is just that bigger, cooler bit of kit, and I mean, you don't often see a diffuser that big on a car. I think it just looks awesome. But one downside to the Elise compared to the Exige is that it doesn't have the struts on the boot, so it just does that. I mean, who thought that boot struts would be such a luxury? I definitely feel like the Exige has a bit more of an aggressive look to it, and it's a very classy looking car as well, especially with all the extras this one's got on it, and that grey really does shine. But personally, I am partial to a bright colour. So let's flip a coin and see which one I like to take out first. Let's go tails Elise, heads Exige. Tails it is!
One thing with the Elise, it's not quite as comfortable and luxurious as the Exige is. The lack of carpet, the soundproofing and the plastic painted seats are not the most comfiest. But then again, it makes you feel like you're in a race car. The Elise is approximately 200 kilograms lighter, so this is only about 950 to less than a ton. So you can feel the difference when you're driving it in the weight, and it just, you can chuck it into corners a lot more than you necessarily could with the Exige. I'd definitely say the Elise is a much easier car to drive. It's like putting your slippers on in the morning. It's so straightforward, and so sort of, you can't go wrong really with it. And the handling in it is just fantastic. The suspension on this is a lot harder as well because it's a track suspension. It's so sort of unforgiving on the road. So if you go over a bump and your back's definitely going to know about it. Smaller engine, I think it's really stingy. I think it's the right word for it. It's not very much engaged. But then again, it's enough. It's not too much that it's pointless. It takes a lot of things in. You don't get to open it up as much as you like on the road, whereas the Elise do. And when you're on track, you are taking that full sense of the car, so you're not missing anything. Whereas on the Elise, maybe on like smaller tracks that you have, especially around Lincolnshire, you kind of need that bit of a bigger straight to really unleash the power of the Elise. Like I was saying with the gearbox, heel towing in this is a lot easier. It's just kind of, you just slam it in basically and it works. I think maybe when you've had a lease for a while, that's maybe when you consider some changing. Is when you've really extracted everything you possibly can as a driver. But at the moment, for me, in the Elise is much better as well actually, because you just got the clear glass behind you, and this one's got standard mirrors to move around a little bit more, they're not fixed in place. It just makes things a bit easier to see, and because it's so small, like, again, even though it's not that much smaller than the Exige, it feels a lot smaller, and moving, parking, all that sort of side of things, it feels much easier than the Exige does, because you can see a lot more around you, and you can basically see the front of the car. So parking wise, you need parking sensors. Now, the biggest difference, of course, is the price. So the Elise is about £15,000 cheaper than the Exige, which is a big difference. As a whole another car really, but obviously you're getting that bit more chassis, you're getting that bigger engine as well, but I don't know if I can justify the extra 15. I mean, it's essentially an Elise and a half.
So now it's time for the Exige. Let's go. Now I think I see the Exige as kind of like the big boy's car. So it's a lot more aggressive to drive. It's got that more power, but it's got the more weight to it. So whereas the Elise, you kind of just sit into it and you drive it, you don't really have to think much about it. The Exige you really do have to think about. And although it's more challenging, it's a lot more rewarding when you get it right. So on track, it is going to be that bit quicker. It's going to walk away in the straights compared to the Elise, just because it's got that extra power and the extra grunt in the V6. But in those tighter corners, because it's that bit heavier, it's going to struggle a little bit. And I know some of it understeers like crazy, but we have put the semi-slick tyres on, so whether that makes a difference, that would be fun to see. One thing that this Exige anyway is much nicer for is the fact that it's got carpet and soundproofing, so you can actually hear yourself think whilst you're driving. It's revolutionary, honestly. Now this Exige has the open gear shifter, and it looks fantastic, but I think on the Exige it's a very difficult gearbox to use, and you have to really make sure you're guiding it into the right gear, and you have to really sort of like nurse it. But compared to the Elise, where it's a really easy gearbox, especially when you get the open one on the Elise, it is fantastic, and I think that's the best combination of both. But like I say, it's challenging, and it makes you a better driver because it's making you work on it, and because it's so driver's focused, it's a good technique and a good skill to have as well. But it does make things like heel toeing very difficult, which it likes it in a very particular way, whereas the Elise you can just kind of heel toe quite simply. This you have to really sort of think about what you're doing when you're putting the clutch down, when you're rev matching, all of that side of things. But again, it's very rewarding when you do get it right. So the Exige weighs about 200 to 300 kilograms more than what the Elise does. And although it's got 100 more horsepower, you can really feel the difference in the weight. It does feel like a lot heavier in the handling, but it's got that power to kind of subsidise that, and I think it's where the Elise will do much better in those tighter corners. The Exige will have it on the straight line all day, every day. It's a very grunty engine. I think it's got a lot to give, and it keeps on giving as well. It never fails to amaze me. They're a lot more unpredictable as well, I think. I think the Elise is very easy to predict what it'll do, whereas the Exige, you're not 100% sure what it's going to give you. But again, that's all part of the fun, and it's all part of making you a better driver as well, and making the whole experience more enjoyable. So it has the Penske 3-way adjustable coilovers, which make the ride so smooth. It is luxurious. And I think that's, again, another thing about the Exige. It does feel like a bit more luxurious than the Elise, whereas the Elise is like your typical track spec full-on car. The Exige have added a few little bits in, and it makes it a little bit more classy and a little bit more of a supercar based thing rather than track toy. I find the Exige more enjoyable to drive, just normal driving. I don't know whether that's because I find this model a bit more comfortable, but it's really nice just to drive. You can drive it that bit more steady, and you don't feel like you need to go all the time. Whereas I think sometimes in the Elise, it's kind of like a bit more of a twitchy right foot. I actually get to drive this car on track next weekend at Hethel, which I am so buzzing for, and I cannot wait to see what this thing can actually really do. I think that's when Lotus come out into their sort of own, is when they're on track, and it's what they're built for essentially. So it's where the best bits of Lotus really shine through. So obviously one problem with this Exige is the harnesses. I mean, they're fantastic for keeping you into place, but when you're pulling out of junctions and stuff, you need to lean forward, you're a bit stuck. So it makes it a little bit scary. But then again, on track, that doesn't really matter. The supercharger whine on this is fantastic as well. It's so loud. The brakes are fantastic. The big brake kit makes a huge difference as well. I think stopping wise, this car compared to my Elise would just hammer me on the braking because of that big brake kit. How can you not love that? The handling on this as well, compared to a normal car, is still just out of this world. I mean, you can feel the weight in it compared to the Elise, but after driving like a normal car, driving this then, the difference is just ridiculous. The big difference between the Exige and the Elise is this one's very thirsty. I mean, it's a lot more expensive to run fuel-wise, because that big 3.5 litre V6 is going to be a bit thirsty. And I mean, I've been driving it literally about 15-20 minutes, and it's gone down a whole bar. Sorry. So I guess all that's left to do is to decide which car do I want to take. Decisions. As much as I love both cars, and especially the Exige, it's going to be the Elise.
You guys know the drill. Make my journey your journey. Like, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!